Welcome back to the IE427 garage, everybody. Today we are going to start work on replacing the oil pan gasket in Jim's Mark IV. There's just a lot of oil seepage around the oil pan gasket, and so our theory is that someone used the wrong type of sealant. They used clear silicone along with the gasket itself in order to seal the oil pan, and it's just failed. So hang on, and I'll bring you right back, and we'll show you what's going on. All right, music update. We have JP Souther, When You're Only Lonely. I'm in the process of draining the oil, and so I don't know if you guys can catch that on. See if I can get the light right behind it. No, it's tough to see. Anyways, I've got the drain pan in underneath the car, and I'm draining the oil right now. I'm probably going to let it drain overnight and see if I can get all the remaining oil out of the pan so that there's less stuff in there to deal with when I finally drop the pan. The only thing that I'm kind of concerned with is the oil pan like overflowing. This looks like it's about a 12-quart pan, and my pan is full. So I may just put the plug back in it and then drain this into one of the storage containers that I use to take the oil in for recycling, and then put the pan back under there and let it sit there overnight, because I just don't want to come in here in the morning and deal with a mess on the floor. So I'll probably catch up with you guys tomorrow, and hopefully I'll be pulling all the nuts off of the studs that hold the oil pan in place and dropping that oil pan out. Pray for me, because there is so much silicone. My hope is that since it's the wrong type of silicone, that it didn't stick, that the oil reacted with it and it's going to come right off, but you just never know. I've had them in the past where just the right sealant was used and I destroyed the pan pulling it off, and I do not want to go through this because I don't want to replace the pan. But I'll catch up with you guys tomorrow. All right, we've got Jim's car up on the lift. I have been working away at getting the oil pan removed. You know, sometimes you're the fish, sometimes you're the bait. It's always interesting to see how a job that was done improperly the first time is going to affect the way you pull something apart, or whether or not you're going to be able to get it apart. In this case, we actually, I think we actually lucked out. It was done improperly, and because of that, we were able to get the oil pan down without too much trouble. I took the nuts. This pan actually has studs. Just stepped in a puddle of oil. And because it has studs, it has nuts that hold the pan in. And I'm going to go ahead, I'll clean all these up later, but for right now they're off, and I've got them all just kind of sitting here. But that's the puddle I stepped in. The pan is off. And if you can see up in here, let's see if I can grab the light. It came off really clean. The only place it really stuck was here in the front. You can see some of the gaskets still on there. And I'm going to have to go in there with a razor blade, a straight edge razor blade, and get all that off. But that's the only place it stuck. To the engine block anyway. So now I'm going to take you over to the pan It's a little bit different story. And this is the second time I'm doing this portion of the video, because I always told you guys I would be honest with you, and when I make a mistake, I'm going to correct it. And because I kept saying the same thing over and over again, I wanted to make sure that I corrected it this time around. This pan is an Aviad pan. So Aviad, I think is the way you spell it. And I misspoke, and I said that it already had a windage tray built into the pan, which it really doesn't. Okay, this portion of the pan keeps the oil from sloshing around. Okay, and it has baffles in it, but it's not a traditional windage tray. The way Aviad sells these pans, it has a separate windage tray. Now this took a little bit of effort to get out. You can see it was stuck at the back, which we managed to get the gasket off clean, and it was stuck at the front, and we managed to get that off pretty clean. Actually, I've got it backwards. This is the back, this is the front. But I did have to get a prying utensil underneath it. I actually had to get a flat putty knife, and then once I got that in there, I had to use a screwdriver as a means of prying it loose. But you can see the bottom side of the gasket is wet all the way around. It was just soaked in oil, which means it wasn't adhering properly to the bottom of the block. And the suspicious thing here is that none of the clear silicone is like on top of the gasket here. And none of the clear silicone was on the bottom of this gasket here. So I've yet to pull the gasket off of the windage tray, and I don't know that I'm going to, because Jim's coming tomorrow, and we're going to go over what our options are on this, because the pan has some issues. I don't know if this pan was bought brand new. My suspicion is it was either a secondhand pan that the previous owner had bought because of the condition of the outside of it and the fact that like all the writing on this side is worn off. But I mean, that could have just been someone going over the sticker with some brake clean or acetone or something like that to clean it up. And so I'm not going to speculate on whether it was a new or a possibly used pan. The point is that because it was installed improperly, whether it was the first time the pan was installed or the second time or whenever, all of the areas where it has mounting bolts, it's puckered, meaning you can see this is higher around where the bolt hole is than the surrounding area. And it's on almost every hole. So this one's not bad, this one's pretty bad, this one's pretty bad, and so on all the way around the pan. And you can see this one over here is really bad. I mean, there's a big hump right here in the pan. So honestly, I could probably take it and put it on the flat portion of the anvil flat portion of the vise, and I could hammer it flat, and there's a chance I could get the pan to seal. But then there's a chance that I might not. And we'd be no better off than where we are now, with it just leaking everywhere. And it was leaking a lot. You can tell right here, all these areas where the gasket just came off. I mean, it literally just lifted off of there. The only areas it's stuck is down here in the valleys, and that's probably where some of the sealant remains, some of the clear silicone. And so everywhere where it was bare, where it's bare now, oil was seeping out of it. So at this point, I'm not going to clean up the pan. I'm probably just going to put it out behind the shop for now. And then I'll go over with Jim exactly, what I think we should do going forward. I think we're probably just going to order a new pan, a far more common pan, one from maybe Canton or Moroso, I don't think we're going to order one with a windage tray or a crank scraper. If this car is just going to be used on the street, I don't see a need for it. And although those two manufacturers typically mount their windage tray to the bottom of the block rather than like sandwiching in between, like this one, you end up needing two sets of gaskets, a gasket on top and a gasket on the bottom. And so now you've got double the chance for oil leakage. And I just don't like that. But I wanted to make sure that in this portion that I'm reshooting the video, that I make it clear that those are two separate pieces. And the pan itself does not have a built-in windage tray. And I'm not going to bother posting the other video that I had shot saying they were. I actually went to the website and saw on their description that the windage tray is separate and that it does indeed take two different gaskets. This is not a inexpensive pan. This is like a $700, $800 oil pan. So I'm assuming that when it was new, it was a serious amount of money to purchase this pan. I just don't think we need an $800 or $700 oil pan for this engine. And so if we're going to have to replace it, we can go with something that's about half that cost. So that's where we're at on that. I'm waiting for Jim tomorrow to come by, and we're going to go over our options, and then we'll decide what we're going to do. I did get some other parts for the car that I'm probably going to continue working on over the next couple of days. But one good thing that came out of this whole oil pan debacle was that I was able to look up inside the engine, and I can't get the camera in close enough to show you guys, but I can actually see the cam lobes, and I can see that it does indeed have roller lifters. So going on down the line, Jim will not have to purchase oil that is high in zinc content because he has flat tappet hydraulic lifters. We can just go with a traditional motor oil. He did purchase some high zinc content that we're going to put in it once we get the new oil pan put on, but we just didn't know. Jim had gone through all of the paperwork that he had, could not confirm one way or the other what type of camshaft the car had in it, so we could determine whether or not it had roller lifters. And so I told him to just be on the safe side. We ought to just spend a little bit extra money, get a high zinc content oil to put in it if we could not confirm. And turns out we were able to confirm, and now he'll be set from now on. We did have to go with a shorter oil filter, and I've got it sitting over here. In the last video, I think I showed the oil filter adapter that we used. And traditionally, we would use what's the Wix equivalent to the FL1A from Motorcraft. That number is a 51515. I've bought so many of them, I know the number by heart. But there is a shorter filter with the same thread, the same gasket diameter, and it is a replacement for some of the mid-90s Mustang Cobra R models. And so this is the filter, and the number on this one is a 51068. And the reason that we're going with this filter versus the 51515 is that where the new adapter sits, it just would make contact with the 4-inch round tube that's going down the length of the car. And we have two alternatives. We can go with either the shorter filter, or we can go with a filter that they use on some of the Ford Ranger vehicles, which is this one, a 51516. You can see this filter is much narrower. So you can see in my hand, this is not as big of a filter. Now, it still probably has the same filter capacity. Wix filters, say what you will, but they are a good quality filter. That's what I use on all of my cars that I can't use a brand specific filter for. So on the Chevys, I use AC Delco. On the Fords, I use an FL1 or whatever the Motorcraft equivalent is, if they're available. If not, they get a Wix filter. I've just had good luck with them. I'm in no means an authority on oil filters. I'm not going to claim to be, but those are what I've always gone with and what I've had good luck with. So I've got a brand new battery box that we just got from Breeze. I'm going to see about maybe mocking that up. We did get a delivery from the driver today, I think. Oh, it's over here. We did get the Breeze radiator shroud, the upper mount, the lower mount, and I think that is probably what we're going to work on the rest of the next couple of days on Jim's car. And then I'm going to be waiting on an oil pan, and so I'm just going to have to get it off the lift, swap spots with it, and then put the 25th anniversary car back up on the lift. So I'm going to get to work. I'll catch up with you guys when I get something else to show you, because right now I've shown you everything I've done for the past, 2 nights. So here we go. All right, so here's where we're at with the oil pan. We discussed over the last couple of days with Jim what we should do about the oil pan. There are some serious issues with the pan rails on the oil pan being deformed from improper installation or just use. I mean, it looks to me as though this may have been a used pan. And Jim has, he has no idea whether the previous owner bought it secondhand, whether he bought it brand new or whatever. So we decided that rather than going back and ordering another Aviad pan, we would look at other options. And so I think what we have decided is we found a Canton pan, a Canton pickup, and a universal dipstick kit for the FE block. And that's what we're going to use in this. And when I mentioned something about the oil and the oil dipstick, Jim said, well, I checked the oil. I checked the level of the oil, and then it dawned on me. All of these aftermarket pans, the dipsticks are cut to fit. So the way that you're supposed to set the level, meaning the dipstick still has a marking on it that says, add, or this is the fill or a hatched area, in between this area you're good. Most of them have that. So there's usually a level indicator on the pan. But the way you go about adjusting that, right, because it's a universal dipstick. It'll work in any of their pans, regardless of the manufacturer, is they tell you what the capacity of the pan is, minus an oil filter usually. So you have to calculate that. And FL1A is a 1-quart oil filter, right? So the Wix is, same thing. The 515 is a 1-quart oil filter. So that essentially means you need 9 quarts to fill the oil system in the car. We're running a little bit shorter filter in Jim's, so we'll probably figure out how much oil it takes to fill the filter to the top, and then we'll adjust accordingly. So you fill the engine to that capacity, or you fill the pan to that capacity. You start the engine up, you let it idle, you turn it off, you just want to warm the oil up basically, then you let it sit for a little while until all the oil drains back into the pan. Now is the time that you take your dipstick and you cut it in increments to fit down in the pan so that it reads to the level that you have put in, the capacity you've put in. If you don't do that, and you just you jam the oil pan, oil pickup in at whatever height, you could have a 9-quart pan like we had here. So 9-quart capacity, another quart for the actual filter. Now you're at 10. We pulled close to 15 quarts of oil out of this car. And it had been blowing oil everywhere. So it had probably leaked or blown out 2 or 3 quarts of oil. So how much oil was originally put in this car would be my question. I think what had happened was the dipstick was never sized appropriately. It was never cut. And so therefore, the level indicator on the dipstick was way higher than it needed to be. And so the actual crank itself was just in oil, which is not a good thing. You don't want the crank to be in oil. It's harder for it to spin around. You want it to lubricate from the top of the engine, not from the bottom up. So I think that may have been one of the reasons that we pulled so much oil out of this car, and the reason that there was so much oil on the bottom of the car and we couldn't seem to keep it in the pan. So we're going to be very careful when we put the new pan on to make sure that we set that level where it's supposed to be. Since I'm waiting on the oil pan right now, and it's going to be a couple of days, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to close this one out here, and I'll probably do a part 2 on the oil pan on the reinstallation, because we've got some issues on the front. The front timing cover wasn't installed flush with the bottom of the block, and so therefore we're going to have to do some creative sealing on the bottom, because we don't want to pull all the accessories off the front and have to worry about pulling the balancer and all that in order to get it the right way. So I think we're going to try to seal it up from the bottom. I did get a thicker gasket, so I'm hoping that'll help us out. But we'll go over that when we do the installation of the new pan. So I'm going to close it out here, guys. All right, I want to thank you guys all for watching. We'll just keep plugging away at it. I think we're going to be getting Jim's car off the lift this afternoon, and we're going to be putting the 25th anniversary car back up on the lift, and I'm going to get some work done on that. We really want to push towards first start on the 25th anniversary car. So we've got a lot of stuff to do on that still. The entire engine still needs to be wired. We've got to finish up the chassis harness. We've got to get the cooling done. We've got to bleed the brakes. Lots of stuff to do on that car, and not a lot of time. So we'll see you guys all next time. If you're enjoying the content, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that good stuff. Comment, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.